Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
Stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army.
Welcome to TLBTV, Eradicating Programmed Ignorance, brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project. And I am your host, Roger Landry, the founder of the Liberty Beacon Project. And of course, sitting right next to me is my lovely and oh so intelligent, she makes me jealous sometimes, co-host Rebecca Mahan, who also has her own show called Rebecca Sounds Reveille. I strongly recommend that to anybody who wants to find out what else is going on in the world. How are you today, Rebecca?
I'm doing really well. I'm very excited about the guest that we have today, and I know that he has been part of the TLB family for a very, very long time. I think that the relationship the two of you have dates back many years, and you're going to be able to share more with our audience today.
I'm going to tell everybody that's watching this, if you haven't, please do me this favor. Go to the Liberty Beacon website, our flagship website. There's a little search bar up in the right-hand corner. Type in the name Bill Muckler exactly as you see it on the screen here and hit enter. The articles you're going to come up with and the shows we have done are going to bend your mind. This is a gentleman with about 4 generations. I've got 3, okay? He's got almost about 4 generations of seeing what's going on in America. And he utilized this knowledge, okay, along with what he did for a living, which put him in touch with a lot of corporations, a lot of businesses, so on and so forth. If you put it all together, you have a highly concerned individual who published a book called 2020, A Clear Vision for America. It is an outstanding book, and if you look in the article this show is embedded in, there's a link where you can go and find out more about that book and purchase that book. I strongly recommend this for anybody who wishes to see the perspective. What most of us are aware of, okay, and the average age of people who watch this show may be 35 to 40 years old. And for those of you who are younger, you're aware of what has gone on for anywhere from 25 to 40 years of history in this country. Imagine somebody who has 4 generations. Not 1, not 2, not 3 like I do, but 4 generations of experience, of observation on the changes, the drastic changes that have come over this country. I've got to tell you something. It is the generation, my generation and Bill's generation, it is incumbent upon us to give you our perspective. You don't know what America was like 75 or 80 years ago. You don't know what America was like 60 or 65 years ago. You don't know the drastic differences because you didn't live through it. And that history is being hidden from you and your children in school today. It is being covered up. So it is incumbent on the Roger Landrys and the Bill Mucklers, and to a much smaller extent, the Rebecca Mahans, to give you the perspective we have that you don't. And that is priceless, my friends, because if you don't know where we came from, you sure as the hell aren't going to know where you're going. All right? It's perspective. This gentleman and I have had many phenomenal discussions, both private discussions about his articles on shows we've done in the past. But Bill has been absent from the Liberty Beacon Project media, although he has been publishing articles with us, phenomenal articles. Please go read them. But he's been absent from TLB Media for quite some time now, so I dragged him kicking and screaming. I'm kidding. It didn't take hardly any persuasion at all to come back on and give us an update. Listen to this man's perspective. I guarantee you it's priceless. What do you think about that, Rebecca?
I am ready to hear what he's got to say. Let's bring him on. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Wait a minute. I just got done telling everybody that you have 4 generations of, you don't look a day over 30. Give me a break. I must be lying.
It's a well-kept secret.
Would you like to, and I'm not going to pressure you to do this, would you like to tell the audience how old you are?
Yes, I'm 81. I'll be 82 on August 13th of this year. So I got, 2 months to go.
4 generations of perspective. I never lie. I never exaggerate. All right, Bill. You published a book called 2020, A Clear Vision for America, which we have promoted, which we absolutely love. Let's start out for those listening or watching who aren't really aware of who you are, and if they followed the Liberty Beacon, they are aware, but let's say we've got some new listeners. Tell them what precipitated you sitting down and writing 2020, A Clear Vision for America. And then when you're done with that, okay, and we've had a little banter about that, we're going to talk about the new book you're writing, because I think the last book you wrote, you immediately realized there's more to the story. At least that's what I got when I talked to you about it.
That's true.
All right, so tell the audience where you came from, why you wrote 2020, A Clear Vision for America, what you hoped we would get from it, and this might sound like a weird question, what did you expect to get from it? And I'm not talking about the money, because we know the book's not making you rich. But at the same time, you wrote it for a reason. Let's talk about that, Bill. You got the floor.
Yes, I guess it goes back to very early in life. I've always had an interest in politics and government and how things work. And I could see our government doesn't work very well. And I spent almost 5 years in the United States Marine Corps as an officer, and I had a top secret security clearance. And I learned a lot about how things work, but I also took an...
One second. I got to interrupt, okay?
Yeah.
There's a Marine vet sitting right on top of you there. Not me. I'm a Navy vet. I'm a Navy vet.
Bayless.
Please continue.
So I just, as I got into business, I became a work management process consultant, and I really got involved in how things work. And I worked for a lot of big corporations, some of the biggest in the world. I've worked for Exxon, Alcoa, U.S. Steel, a lot of coal companies, NRG Energy. And every place I went, they all had problems in how do they do things. And so I was able to help them put those things together. And I kept looking at the federal government. I thought, there is no one in the federal government that really ties the entire government together and makes it operate as one entity. It's just a whole bunch of different departments that are all competing for money, for budget money, and none of them really has a plan, and there's no continuity for a plan to really make America run the way it should, to make it effective and efficient and best for we the people. So, and Roger, you and I have had this conversation many times. In fact, I have heard you tell me, and I believe this, the whole government was turned upside down back in 1913, at least my take is 1913, when we decided that we're going to have an income tax, so we're going to now tax people for going to work. And that to me seems immoral. We're also going to tax people.
1 second, okay? I got to butt in there because you're rolling along real good. Just remember where you were. There's 2 years that absolutely changed America. You're right. 1913 income tax and the Federal Reserve came into being, okay? Both extremely detrimental to the United States. But the big one was in 1871. the Act of 1871, which turned the United States, where Congress sold the United States to a bunch of corporatists, including the Rothschild family, and made the United States of America a corporation, not a constitutional republic. Sorry about that, but you triggered me, my friend. Please continue.
Okay. So in 1913 also, we passed the, what was it, the 17th Amendment, which took the states' rights of selecting their senators or their representatives to the United States government, turned it over to a popularity contest. So now what we have is the federal government's on top of all of us, and they made the states regional departments of the federal government, and we the people be damned. And I want to get us back to where we the people have a small, limited government that's close to home, that we're in control of, and that we know how things work and how to make things run. So I thought, okay, what I need to do with my book, and I wrote this in my head, was solutions. And so I took the 20 worst problems that our dysfunctional politicians have imposed on us, and I wrote them all down, and I started doing cost-benefit analysis on every problem they've inflicted on us. I did a root cause analysis. I studied the history, the background, and I came up with logical, common sense solutions. And so that's what I put in my book.
Well, let me, first off, Rebecca, now do you see why I love this guy so much? Do you see?
I have to say, what I really love to hear is that he is a solution-based man. This is lacking. We have so many people that would prefer to sling dung or to have someone look the other way so they can't see what's really going on, because they don't have solutions or are not even wanting to try to create solutions to make things better. This, to me, is a very positive perspective and take on what really needs to be done. Here are some solutions.
Well, I'm going to tell you, this is my take on this, okay? You all heard him give you his background. What did he do for these large companies? He went in and decided, or helped to decide, what was needed in order for their functionality to become more efficient, in order for them to streamline, in order for directives to go from the top to the bottom in a much more efficient fashion, to get rid of the waste, to cut the fat, to make things, to put things into perspective that anybody from the top to the bottom could really realize and understand. And there are so many of the independent media out there that suffer from the same thing, but not so much the Liberty Beacon Project, because we do focus on solutions. Otherwise, Bill wouldn't be here, okay? So much of the people who tell us what is wrong today, and they do a good job of it, that's all they do is tell us what's wrong. I've got to explain something to you. If I turn my TV on every day and you're constantly telling me what's wrong, eventually I'm not going to turn my TV on anymore, because I don't want you depressing me every day. Every time I turn my TV on, I'm going to be depressed. But if you start offering me solutions, you are offering me simultaneously hope.
Yes.
Hope.
And, you know, this is the challenge that we have faced for a long time, is we have had repeated years of challenges, and you have people that come up and say, well, I'm going to change this. Okay, and so how? And instead of providing one solution, two solution, three options on what can be done, how it can be done, instead we're being told what the other person is doing wrong and deflecting from answering or addressing an issue that absolutely has to be resolved.
Isn't she a gem, Bill?
Absolutely.
There's no stupid people in TLB except me.
No, that's not true either. There's something that always bothered me all my life, ever since I was a little kid. I heard the saying, you can't fight City Hall. And I thought, well, that's crazy. They're supposed to be working for us. They're our servants. Why can't we? And so what's happened, and I see it so much today, is people are just saying, well, it is what it is. And I just hate these cliches, like it is what it is, because that's not really true. What we can do is we can change things, but people are locked into their box, their paradigm. They have paradigm paralysis, so they think nothing can be done, so now there's no sense in doing anything. We'll just go with the flow. It is what it is, and and
paradigm paralysis.
Paradigm paralysis.
There's two problems here. One is that a lot of people think that they cannot affect change because it has to be done on a big scale, and that is not true. They can start with their local city government by just attending and becoming educated what's going on in their own communities. The second challenge that we have is that we have a society now that believes in entitlement and everything is about them. So people should automatically assume to know what they are thinking and to provide the things that'll make their life easier without even speaking or supporting or trying to affect change in the areas of their life that they want it.
You just remind me of something. Last year, I wrote many articles on what we're really voting for, and that goes back to when we had candidates on, multiple candidates on both sides. And I kept saying, okay, what it's going to boil down to is we're going to vote for a huge expansion of the welfare state, or we're going to vote for a small expansion of the welfare state. But that's really the choices we got. And we have to get to a point where we can change all that, because we don't have to vote for a large government that's going to give everything away to everybody. And when I heard people like Bernie Sanders say that he was going to give people free education, I thought, that defies the American spirit, because you don't feel good about anything you get for free. You feel good about things you accomplish, things that you work for, things that you earned. And we're missing that in America today. And I grew up with that, working. And now people don't want to work. They want everybody to give them everything, including a free education, which means that we're going to send them to more government indoctrination centers.
Not only that, but you've got to understand that Bernie Sanders is, in fact, a self-proclaimed socialist. Now, if you stop to consider every socialistic government that's ever existed on this planet, they have all either collapsed from within, failed politically, or are in the process of failing. So, you have to stop and understand that if everything is given to the person who doesn't feel he needs to do anything, and most of that is taken away from the person who has ambition and wishes or strives to accomplish everything, and they both sit on the same level with the same income and the same standard of living, what you eventually have is those who don't wish to do anything but share in everything soon far outnumber those who wish to do everything. And this is what we're seeing. Am I right, Rebecca?
Well, let me say this too, Roger, is that when someone doesn't earn something for themselves to see the blood, sweat, and tears that go into something, there's no value. And if we look at our society right now, who has been given so many things, and there's this sense of entitlement, we are seeing that the values and mores in our society are going away.
You have 4 generations of perspective. I want you to talk to what Rebecca just said, because that's a sterling point. I know what I've seen in 3 generations of perspective. What have you seen as far as speak to the values of America since you were a kid and today? Because to me, that's a horror story waiting to be told.
Yes, our values are eroding every generation, every decade. There's no question about that. It's gotten to the point where we don't value our culture anymore. We don't value our country, and we certainly don't value our Constitution anymore, because now people don't even know what their rights are, because they don't even know what the Constitution is. And so we want to take God out of schools, and we want to take God out of every place. And I'm not saying that we should have a theocracy, but are we really at a point where we have to deny the fact that, you know, we believe in a creator anymore, because that might offend someone? And now we've gotten to the point where no matter what anybody says, I'm offended. And I'm thinking, can we take the word offend out of the English language and do something, you know, terminate it or erase it?
SJWs, okay, SJWs, but I promise I'll let you in, but I've got to get this out, okay? I wrote an article not too long ago, and I published several other articles with like stories about children who bring their homework home, okay? Their social studies homework. And on their homework, a father or a mother who's helping their child, which I really admire, with their homework reads, this is what they're being taught at school, that the U.S. government gives us our rights or grants us our rights as privileges, so we in turn must owe our loyalty to the government. Let me explain, everybody listening here, why that pisses me off so much, because that is the biggest lie our children are being told. Ask your children where their rights come from. They'll tell you they come from the government. Our rights are given to us by our Creator, and it is our government's duty to protect them, not to grant them, not to take them away, not to say it's a privilege, but to protect them. They are given to us by our Creator. So now you've got a child who believes that the government grants them their rights, so they need to be beholding or loyal to the government, meaning the government, they are subservient to the government. That's the second point. In order to understand this, you have to know what the Constitution is. What does the Constitution say? The government is subservient to we the people. Any one citizen anywhere in this country holds more power than any senator or any congressman in Congress. They are our servants, intended only to do our business. So when you tell my grandchild today that your rights are granted by a government, so you need to be loyal to your government, that is tyranny. Have I got that right, Bill?
You have that right, absolutely. And let me segue into my new book. And my first book was 2020, A Clear Vision for America. My second book is 2020, A Clear Vision for Our Future. And I'm writing it in 20 chapters like I did before, but in 3 parts. And the first part is restoring our Constitution. The second part is respecting our culture, and the third part is reclaiming our country. And
I love it.
In the first part, in the Constitution, I explain all these things that you were just expounding on, why we need to do this. Now, why you asked me why I decided that I have to talk about the Constitution and why we need to restore it. And let me tell you, I belong to the Military Officers Association of America. I've actually gone and I've had speaking engagements with them. I've had speaking engagements with Jacksonville University, lots of schools and places like that. And I ask them a question. I say, can anybody tell me what are the 5 rights that are granted to you under the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights? No man, I'm talking about military officers and college students can only give me 3 typically, only answer 3. Now, if those people only know 3, then what do the rest of the people know? And I talk to people a lot of times, and I'll ask them, and some of them don't even know any. And then I'll say, well, what about freedom of religion? Oh, yeah, well, that's a right, I guess, you know. And if I prompt them, then they'll know something. But they can't just come right out and say what it is. And no one understands what it means when it says unabridged. And that's exactly what you're talking about, because that's what the Constitution is all about. It says these rights cannot be unabridged. In other words, they can't be diminished or taken away from us or eradicated or muted or however you want to put it. And right now we're in a position where if we don't get people to know what's in that Constitution, we're lost. And if somebody says, if I ask somebody, you know, how many amendments are there to the Constitution, they have no clue. And I'll say, you know, and I'll say, well, 27. Oh, really? And I'll say, and what about in the Constitution itself? Does it ever mention in the Constitution the right to vote? Oh, yeah, it's in there. I said, really? Is it really in there? No, it's in amendments. Oh, really? What amendment? How about the 14th and the 15th, the 19th and the 24th and 26th? Have you ever heard of any of them? Oh, no.
But hold on a minute, Bill. Hold on a minute, Bill. Let me jump in here because and just remember where you are, because I've got to say this, okay? I just got done talking about a kid who brought home, you know, homework, okay, which says rights granted by the government, you owe your loyalty to the government, okay? I also need to tell you that you're talking about how many people don't know their rights, don't know the amendments, even the basic amendments that were written in the original Bill of Rights, okay? Let's talk about these issues with all of these people out there, because I dare you to go into any public school today and find where they are being taught. If you want to bring a society to a point of ignorance, not stupidity. Ignorance means a lack of knowledge. Stupidity is having the knowledge and deciding not to use it or use it wrong. But if you want to bring an entire society to the point of ignorance, it only takes one generation. If you steal the minds of one generation, you steal the minds of every generation that follows it. Today in our schools, they are not being taught the Constitution. They are not being taught the Bill of Rights. They are not being taught the Declaration of Independence. Hardly anybody even mentions the Declaration of Independence. But my God, the amount of I don't know, the stranglehold it should have on what goes on in this country is phenomenal. But none of this is, they tell you we have a Bill of Rights. They tell you we have a Constitution. They tell you we have a Declaration of Independence. But as you say, walk down the boardwalk in Los Angeles or down a main street in New York and ask anybody what they are. 1 in 30 will have any type of a serious clue. That is a disaster.
Well, I wanted to go, this goes right back to what I was going to say earlier in also what Bill said, and that is the things that are being taken out of the school that were the actual things that founded our country, such as God, is a real issue. And let me tell you why. Because there's other things that are being placed in the school system that is completely acceptable, not to everyone, but completely acceptable to the new climate in society. And here's the problem with that. Those are the same people who are saying you should have tolerance and we should all be able to just get along. Well, as long as we can take what you want out of it and insert what we want.
Oh, whoa. Hold on a second, because, and I promise I'll let you continue. You constantly trigger me, okay? There is an article on two articles on the Liberty Beacon. Anybody listening or watching this, please do a search on the main page of the Liberty Beacon website. There are after school, held on school property in school classrooms, after school Satan clubs spreading across America, where Satanism is being taught to our children in school. Now, they scream bloody murder if you put God in school because of the separation of church and state. But after school, your children can go to a Satan club and learn all about Satan. Where's the sanity in this, Rebecca?
There isn't. And this, the problem is that all the founding things that created our country, whether you agree with them or not, that's what founded our country. And for us to take that away and not allow people the opportunity to realize these things is a real problem. It's changing history. and changing the way that our society looks at things. I'm not saying people have to agree. I'm not saying that everything that they do that I have to agree on. But these things should not be taken out just because of one subculture's agenda within the nation.
Hitler said, okay, give me the minds of one generation and I will change the future. This is what we're seeing. Bill, how far off are we?
We're right on track here. And as I was talking about the Constitution, one thing I wanted to mention is it's very easy to take that Constitution away from us if we don't understand what's in it. And today it might be one thing, tomorrow it might be another thing. Today, let me tell you what is taking place in the Constitution because people don't understand it. It's called Sharia. Sharia is law, right? And it's the law of a different culture, and it's supposed to be a religion. But I don't think it's a religion. I think it's a economic and religious and cultural and
control factor. Yes.
Yes. So now we have judges in America that are ruling on Sharia, and we have communities in the United States that are governed by Sharia. And I cannot see how anybody can live under two masters. And isn't that what's going to happen if we have Sharia and Constitution side by side?
They can't coexist. They cannot coexist.
They cannot. So if we don't know what's in the Constitution, it'd be very easy to say, well, yeah, let's go with Sharia then.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Well, I could not imagine, okay, a Marine veteran and a retired police officer, okay, all of a sudden being told she's got to cover her entire body. She cannot drive a car. She needs to hide. She cannot be seen talking to men. And if she gets raped, she needs 4 male witnesses. Otherwise, she's guilty of adultery and she gets stoned to death. Or if you tell somebody you're gay, they either stone you to death or throw you off the roof of a building. Let's talk about tolerance. Let's talk about everything within Sharia law absolutely negates the Constitution. They are not only opposing to each other, they cannot exist in the same realm, period.
So this is an example. This is today. Maybe tomorrow it's Marxism. Maybe it's communism. Maybe it's something else that we don't know about. But eventually, if we keep eroding our knowledge of the Constitution and we keep eroding our culture and we keep going down this morally bankrupt road that we're on, we're eventually going to lose our freedom and our liberty. And that's really what's at stake in the long run, isn't it?
Well, I asked you to tell everybody what you had observed in 4 generations of perspective. And by golly, you served it up well, my friend. Rebecca, you were going to say?
Oh, I think that pretty much sums up what I had to say. I agree that we're all on the same page here and seeing something that is very clear. And the minute one of our amendments starts to change, that's going to bring down the whole house, and that is not okay.
No. Well, we look at what we're looking at today, okay, is a system that is dominated by a thought process. And this thought process, most of us, although I don't think it's an accurate term, we call them liberals or progressives, okay? We have a very progressive political system in this country. It is focused on a global governance. It's focused on removing our identity from us as Americans. It's focused on bringing the upper middle class down and bringing the lower, poor class up, and everybody being entitled to, okay? As a matter of fact, you're seeing this. There's actually a law on the books in California about a minimum guaranteed income, okay? A minimum, in other words, you don't have to do anything and you might get $15,000 a year to live on. You don't have to do anything. It's just automatically guaranteed to you. Who's going to pay for that? It's the people that are out there busting their hump and working. So what we're looking at today is a progressive system that has a deadlock on the American political system. They don't dislike Trump because he's a Republican, because there's a lot of Republicans on the same bandwagon with these progressives. They're bought and paid for by Soros, by so on and so forth, these elitist casts. So they don't dislike Trump because he's a Republican. They don't dislike Trump because he's the president. They dislike Trump because he wishes to pull us back, or at least he says he does. There's some doubts there. Pull us back away from this progressive mindset where Americanism is a disease, where freedoms are a disease, where poor people don't have to work like the people who are working their butt off to get what they've earned need to work. That progressive system doesn't really register with Donald Trump. And what you are seeing is a progressive political system that is doing more to rip apart the American presidency. Geez, let me ask you a question, Bill. Have you ever seen a president treated so badly? And I'm not talking about Kennedy's assassination, because that was quick, bam, done. Okay, I'm talking about a president that has been tortured from his first day in office and will probably be tortured the last day he's in office. Have you ever seen anything like this? The Congress is against him, the Senate's against him, the federal courts across the land are against him, the Democratic Party's against him. Tell me, have you ever seen this in your 4 generations of perspective?
Never. And I'm glad you brought this up, because I just released an article today that I'll put on, that I'll turn over to Ralph, so you can have it. And I talk about the demeaning demeanor of number 44. No, there's never been a president that went back and demeaned the previous president, Bush 43, or the future president, Trump 45. It's never happened before. Typically, presidents do not demean the other presidents. So anyway, no, I've never seen that before. But if they do it, if he does it, then it's fair game for everyone else. Now, in my articles, and just so people can understand how I write these things, I've got characters in my articles. Sometimes I call myself the Muckster, and sometimes I have conversations with the lovely Laney, who is Elaine. And then I talk about the goats, who are the, and I use that as an acronym. It's a goofy Obama adoration team. And then we have the rhinos, but rhinos with an H, that's a really hypocritical, incompetent organization, the neutered organization. So anyway, we have them. And then we also, and I also like to talk about the shady stream media, because they really are shady. I mean, they're not above board or transparent anymore.
Don't get me started on that, Bill.
You don't have to get started on it. I'll say it for you.
Okay. All right. Well, look, we're going to bring this to a close. We're going to wrap it up. This was basically to bring you back into the light here. For anybody who doesn't know, we're on the cusp of getting Bill to start doing his own TLBTV show, which I think is probably one of the best ideas that Rebecca has had in a very long time, and she has phenomenal ideas every day. This is the gentleman that how many of us sat around the fireplace or the campfire or in the backyard around the pool and listened to Grandpa tell us stories, because he had a perspective we couldn't imagine. And we looked at this gentle elderly gentleman sitting there telling us, when I was a child, this is the way it was. And those stories fascinated us. And those stories always captured and held our attention. Okay? I'm sorry, but you're probably a great-great-grandfather at this point, Bill. And I look at you, even though I'm only 21 years younger than you, I look at you in that light. I look at you as the individual with that perspective. And I think that once you start doing a TV show, we ought to talk about, we ought to call it something like Bill Muckler Around the Campfire or something. We'll think of something. But the point here is, everybody's going to start to look at you that way, because what you can tell them, none of us knows. We weren't there, Bill. You were. And I so look forward to that.
It's called wisdom.
Yes, it's called wisdom.
I don't know if it's wisdom or not, but I had a chat with a Facebook friend, a young Facebook friend today, and he's telling me about all the things he read in his history books. And I said, what you read in your history books has been rewritten by Marxists or socialists, because that's not what happened. I was there. You cannot tell me what happened in the 1950s and 60s because you read it in a book, because I was there and I was paying attention while I was there.
Well, you were a little older than I was in the 50s and 60s, but I was born in 54, and by the mid-60s, I've got a blistering high IQ. I got to tell you something. By the mid-1960s, I was telling my teachers how screwed up they were. So, yes, I remember what went on in the 60s and the late 50s. And I actually was in an accident when I was 2 years old. A garbage truck hit my grandfather's car when we were driving down the street, actually across the bridge. I can tell you the names today of the individuals who were driving that truck. I can give you the details. I was 2 years old. So, yeah, I've got perspective, but I don't have what you have, and I'm jealous, Bill. Not that I want to be 83 years old. I don't. But not yet, anyway. But the point here is I'm jealous of the perspective you have, because you have seen a transition in this country that is startling.
Yes.
Much agreed.
All right, Bill, do me a favor. Give us about a 1 minute wrap up. Tell us what you would expect to get out of, or what you would expect to have as a goal from a TLB TV show. Then we'll go to Rebecca and let her throw a closing in, and then I'll take us out with a bang.
A goal for me for doing this would be to get more people to understand what it was before we started into this political assassination routine that we're in right now. And the fact that it doesn't mean that we can't change and go back to what we were before, because technology has changed, but people haven't changed. We still have the same minds and bodies and souls. And there's no reason why we can't bring civility back into our country. There's no reason why we can't bring reason into it. And there's no reason why we can't, again, be educated enough to be able to run our own space programs, our own scientific projects, and so forth, and not be 30th in the world, industrialized world in education. So these are all things that we don't have to be satisfied with. We don't have to accept them.
I am looking so much forward to you doing your first show. Oh my God, this is going to be absolutely great. Around the Campfire with Bill Muckler.
Love it.
Listen to Grandpa. I freaking love it. All right, Rebecca, what's your wrap up here?
I think he said everything that really needs to be said, and the only thing I can do to support that is something that Solomon said, and there's nothing new under the sun.
Well, Bill, this is the individual you're going to be working with going forward to get you into the TLBTV branch of the Liberty Beacon Project, Rebecca, and she is just an absolute charm to work with and to work. I mean, absolutely. You'll enjoy the hell out of it. But I got to say goodbye to everybody because we're at the end of the show. So for everybody watching, please be on the lookout in the near future for Bill's new TLB TV show. And always look on the Liberty Beacon to see if he's published a new article with us, because he does so quite often. All you have to do is put his name in the search bar, Bill Muckler, and hit enter. You'll come up with a lot of phenomena. And they're not very time sensitive. The ones he wrote 2 years ago make just as much sense today as they did 2 years ago. So please look at what this extremely wise individual has imparted on us. And for everybody watching and everybody listening, this has been TLBTV, brought to you, Eradicating Programmed Ignorance, brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project. And we wish you all a very pleasant day.